Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are running indeed quite behind, so we'd better make a swift move and carry on. Now, the title of the conference presentation really today, or the specialist subject, is that of sustainable diets. So as an extreme health freak, as you can probably tell by my size, and I actually quite enjoy eating healthily, I decided to look at the question, why do we actually need sustainable diets? And it's proved one that has been incredibly difficult to answer. So enjoy. Food choices and health. Well, there is a distinct link between what we put in here and what happens to us as a person. Now, interestingly enough, despite the extent of world food production, unfortunately, we've got 805 million people estimated to be malnourished, and that alone comes with its health consequences. Reduced immunity, reduced wound healing, we have longer hospital admissions, increased risks of infection, and all sorts of other issues. On the other side of the coin, however, we've got 2.1 billion adults and children who are considered to be both overweight or obese. And again, that has serious, significant impacts. More recently, I actually published a review which suggests that many parents, particularly in the United Kingdom, aren't able to recognise when their child is overweight. And that is cause for concern, because if you've got an overweight child, then 9 times out of 10, that's going to go on to be an overweight adult with increasing health risks. With obesity, as we all know, it's incredibly well documented. You've got an increased risk of hypertension, cardiovascular disease. All of these are non-communicable diseases. Cardiovascular disease per se accounts for the most non-communicable deaths. And in fact, if you want to shove it into statistics, the World Health Organization says at least 17.5 million people die annually of these such diseases. If we don't step on it and do something about it, the death rate from non-communicable diseases is projected to rise to at least 52 million people by the year 2030. So what are we actually going to do? And will sustainable diets help? Good question. Food choices also do affect the environment. Now, agriculture alone is supposed to be responsible for more than 30% of global greenhouse gases. The livestock sector, again, alone accounts for at least 18% GHG emissions and about 80% of total land use. And according to a recent review written by Riuini et al. In 2015, livestock is also suggested to cause deforestation, loss of biodiversity, and land degradation. So really, we do need to try and get a handle on some of the ways in which we're producing our food and our food consumption. And interestingly enough, whilst we have all got our own personal carbon footprint, food also has its own carbon footprint, where you've got things from one end of the scale to the other. So sort of say here, for example, lentils and tomatoes with an incredibly low carbon footprint, right the way up to turkey, pork, beef, and other meat products with an incredibly high carbon footprint. Definitely there is a link between ecosystems and human health, and ecosystems are the biological systems of the planet, okay? But the link between that and human health is very equivocal. It's also dependent upon time, space, indirect causalities, and also many confounding factors. People who do this research and these studies need to identify what specific confounding factors they are, because otherwise the research is then skewed in different directions, as we know. So that brings me to the question, well, what is a sustainable diet? Well, first thing one has to ask oneself is what on earth is meant by sustainability? If you ask different people, you get different opinions. So first of all, you have many people thinking that sustainability is economic. Some people think it is to do with the environment. Now, is a sustainable and healthy diet possible? Potentially so, but the question is, how? There is no standard definition of what a sustainable diet is, but the FAO have got one that they use as choice, and this is the one that you usually find published in many of the reviews. So a sustainable diet is one that has a low environmental impact. It contributes to food and nutrition security and to healthy life, both for this generation and future generations. Sustainable diets are protective. They respect biodiversity and ecosystems. They're culturally acceptable, accessible, economically fair, and affordable. They are nutritionally adequate. But what does that mean? Who knows? We're going to unpick that in a few minutes. They're safe, they're healthy, and they optimize human resources. And quite rightly so. Garnett argues, well, what on earth does a sustainable diet look like on a plate? What is nutritional adequacy? Is it population level? Is it individual level? All these questions. Now, Garnett defines what a sustainable diet is in this very complex diagram, which I am not going to take apart. It includes nutrition, environment, economic and food supply, society and ethics, other food-related disorders, many, many different confounding factors which are going to affect the ways in which we eat and the ways in which we produce our food. So the next question to ask is, well, what is good nutrition? And believe you me, if any student of mine wrote in an assignment, so-and-so needs to require good nutrition, they would get a comment from me saying, well, this is vague. What on earth do you mean by that statement? It's the same as the thing with adequate nutrition. I think it would be best to say optimizing nutritional status. And the other point in which to make is, you cannot have an adequate nutritional status that's the same for one person, it's the same for the person next door to them. Everybody is completely and totally different. Now, so far, and particularly in the United Kingdom, we use reference nutrient intakes. They were devised by the Department of Health back in 1991, and they are devised over a population average. So they are a very good guide as to some of the nutrients that we need to be eating in order to optimize our nutritional status. However, they are a guide, and as I said, they cannot apply to every member of the population because everyone is different. The other question we need to ask is, does the method of food production, for example, will that influence nutritional status? I suggest very strongly that it does. The research suggests very strongly that it does. So, for example, what about organic foods and sustainability? Is there a link? Unfortunately, 2 systematic reviews published by 2 incredibly very good authors in the last 5 years have suggested that there is no evidence whatsoever that organic foods confer better nutrition. Unfortunately, though, for some countries, organic food is less likely to have pesticides. And if you're in a third world country, that can have a significant impact on food. The good news is, though, that grass-fed animals are far leaner than usual, and they probably have more omega-3 than their grain-fed counterparts. However, the converse side of that is, if you've got poultry, particularly ones that have been intensively farmed, then they've got more fat, and they play quite a significant role in decreasing the omega-3/6 ratio. Then if you want to split hairs and pull that apart, one of the problems with the omega-3/6 ratio is a lot of scientists dispute that it's actually very much important. And secondly, as scientists, we have absolutely no idea what the optimal dose of omega-3 is, what the optimal dose of omega-6 is, and how we need to maintain that balance to maintain good health. So there are many aspects of diet and the food supply under the spotlight for a sustainability perspective. You can see them for yourselves there. We have not got time to go into every single one of them during this presentation. So I will be focusing on one, and I will come to that in just a few moments' time. First of all, I'd like to introduce you to the Eat Well plate. Good pictorial guide devised by the British Nutrition Foundation back in the 1990s with the aim to try and increase, or decrease, should I say, obesity in the United Kingdom. Unfortunately, now it's 2015 and the levels of obesity have started to climb out of all proportion, and indeed obesity is a 21st century global academic health problem. Now this is a good plate, it's a good pictorial guide, but there is one huge problem that screams out at you. Where is the portion size guiding? There isn't any. And Janice Harland has published an excellent review back in 2012 saying that we actually need to work on this quite significantly. And also the British government is now coming round to the idea that they would like to use this Eat Well plate in the development of a sustainable diet. How that is going to work, I don't know. It's going to be quite an interesting concept, and we do need to get some more money and we need to do some more work on that. So why have I chosen to talk about meat? Well, UK meat consumption and US meat consumption is particularly quite high, and I've got a slide that's coming up later to suggest that globally we are all eating a lot more meat. It's very well documented and suggested that high levels of meat consumption has a particularly risk for bowel cancer, heart disease and diabetes, and that's particularly in association with red meat and processed meat. The UK government now advise that we have to eat no more than 70 grams of red and processed meat a day, and 6 out of 10 men and 1 in 4 women already exceed this. And just to cut a long story short, just for the environmental impact of meat production, as Bill Gates rightly suggested, raising meat takes a great deal of land, water, and has a substantial environmental impact. And Putting it simply, there is no way that we are going to be able to produce enough meat for 9 billion people. Failure to address the excess meat consumption can risk breaking boundaries related to atmospheric GHG concentrations. It can potentially disrupt the nitrogen and phosphorus cycles, potential to have loss of biodiversity, and unfortunately, it is suggested that that could possibly trigger catastrophic environmental changes. Well, with all due respect, yes, I totally respect this point of view, but Mother Nature is going to warm up this planet whether we like it or not, and this is a small but a drop in the ocean. So yes, it is important, but it's going to take an awful lot before we manage to change things. And that may be my opinion, but as Gerber says in 2013, even improving environmental efficiency of meat production is unlikely to have any impact on greenhouse gases alone. So what are we supposed to do? Well, the simple message is, and definitely I would support this, probably for health reasons, is that we should think about eating less meat. Problem is, what actually are we going to be replacing it with? Well, our next speaker in the next session will be talking about a product known as corn, which is a very good alternative, and hopefully there are some methods of using that quite sustainably. The other question we have to ask ourselves with sustainable diet is, do we actually let climate change take its course and adapt to its consequences? I would say probably yes, very much so. And if, in this nation, if we accept that we need to eat less meat, we need to ask what the nutritional role is in the diet, what is an environmentally sustainable amount of meat in the diet, with some meats preferred to others, and the implications of meat and health. So basically, we are what we eat. We make conscious decisions and choices. There is culture, there's education, there is your lifestyle. All of those things work together to decide what we take off those plates, put into our mouths and consume. And as I've already suggested, what do you eat in the absence of meat? Well, we've already had one product, but you can have grains and pulses. But with that, you also then have the other issue, well, if you're eating more carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates and crops, then again, agricultural issues. People in lower incomes have got, lower income countries have got lower income, they've got poor animal diversity, so they may well need to consume more animal products to get any basic form of nutrition that's necessary. Over here, in the United States, highly westernized countries, we've got a better income, we've got far more diverse range of foods consumed. Meat is very high in protein, it's high in zinc, vitamin A and B. It's high in saturated fat, but that may or may not be a problem. Now, it's really interesting. We are a westernized country. We eat a lot of meat. Meat, as we've just said, a lot of iron, a lot of zinc, vitamin A and lots of vitamin B. But you look at this statistics from the British Nutrition Foundation and British Population Survey. Low intakes, iron, particularly in teenage girls, vitamin A rather than vitamin B. So what is going wrong? We're supposed to eat all this meat. Why are we not nutritionally replete? It's a good question. And that's not just for meat. If you look at the rest of these diagrams, we are not achieving good fruit and vegetable consumption, oily fish consumption. Fat, surprisingly enough, is okay. Saturated fat, probably not quite so. Sugar, fibre, salt intake, vitamins and minerals, all poor. And yet we're a highly westernized, diverse population. Looking about meat consumption and health, there is a lot of dispute in the literature about this. It is suggested that high meat consumption is linked to obesity and chronic disease. So then we pose the question, well, surely if you become a vegetarian, that's better. You've got a lower BMI and a lower all-cause mortality rate. However, if you think about it, if you're going to be a vegetarian, some people in the literature argue that it may well be that you live in a more affluent country and therefore you're better educated, you've got more chances to be physically active, you've got better health beliefs and a different lifestyle. So again, that may well not be. An interesting research from Keyes published in 2009 said, however, meat as part of a balanced diet, in inverted commas, and health-conscious meat eaters, when compared to vegetarians, there is absolutely no difference whatsoever in overall mortality, coronary heart disease, or cancer. And I quite agree with this point. Meat alone does not cause obesity. There is not one factor that causes obesity. It is a multifactorial problem. This is why we are in the state we are in this 21st century. the levels are still increasing. Thinking about meat again, 60% of all new infectious diseases are zoonotic in origin, and at least 75% of new human pathogens reported in the last 25 years originated in animals. And I think we probably all remember Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease or mad cow disease, which did have a significant impact on the population. So we look at what a sustainable meat diet would look like on a plate. Here in the UK, we're very keen on our meat and 2 veg, and there is nothing wrong whatsoever with either of these 2 meals. One might be on the bit of the healthier side, the one with the sort of the roasty potatoes and the meat and the 2 vegetables. The other one with the fried onion rings and the fried chips and the fried tomatoes. Both are fine, just don't eat them 365 days of the year. Eat a more healthy, balanced diet to offset the fat that you've had. Not a problem. If you want to look at the sources of meat consumption in the UK, you will find that 59% of our intake is from cooked and processed meat, with a whopping 16% coming from TV dinners or ready meals. That says a lot about our cooking habits, and it's true. People don't cook anymore. British lifestyle is changing considerably. Pace is really very much quicker. We don't have an awful lot of time. And as I suggested earlier, the meat consumption around the world is beginning to grow. But it would be really interesting to get these figures, rip them apart, and actually look at where the consumption is coming from. Is it, sorry?
India 0.
Yes, India is 0. It's really quite interesting to see these figures. But for those who are eating meat, it would be interesting to see what type of meat they are actually eating and where it's coming from. So just going back to the saturated fat debate, just how bad is it for us? Well, it has been very well documented over the centuries that animal products are the main source of saturated fat, which can cause chronic heart disease, but that just depends on you as an individual. So what do? We replace it with probably more refined carbohydrates. The recent carbohydrate report produced by the Scientific Advisory Community on Nutrition this year suggests eating more fruit and vegetables and most definitely reducing our sugar intake. However, as I've already said, if we're going to be trying to eat more carbohydrates and certainly crops, there's issues with crops, agricultural methods, fertilizers, pesticides and irrigation. So we really need to think more about educating our farmers and changing their agricultural methods. And that needs to be a global initiative and not just in this country if we're going to have any way of making an impact on sustainable diets. Currently, livestock breeding reduces fat content by around about 30% in pork, 15% for beef, and 10% in lamb. So that's good, it's a good start. And there's also an argument to suggest that stearic fat found in beef fat does not actually contribute to CHD. So does saturated fat cause chronic disease? Well, that is a good question. Long-term randomized controlled interventions are almost lacking, and that is such a shame because that's the gold standard of research. And so what we've got now, data-wise, is based on epidemiological data. And that's absolutely fine. However, it only allows conclusions regarding associations instead of effects. More recent systematic reviews, however, included things called prospective cohort studies, and these are much better. They produce a very high or moderate quality, and they show convincing evidence on the favourable effects of partially replacing saturated fat by polyunsaturated fat for the risks of coronary heart disease. So again, it's very interesting to look. I mean, whereas before they were saying, oh no, don't eat butter, don't eat meat. Now it's okay to eat butter. It changes every week. No wonder people get confused. Then we look at white meat and health. So for example, poultry and fish as well, which isn't meat technically, but there you go. So both poultry and fish are actually protective. However, then you've got the other argument where you've got lots of poultry, they're fed on soy, increased soy production gets deforestation, equals an undermining food security. Okay, that was published in 2008, but they still have a point. You've got battery farm chickens. They have 1/3 more fat and increased antibiotic use. That can have quite severe implications on food safety. What's the converse with free-range chickens? Are they better? Who knows? Is all processed meat consumption risky, or does the quantity matter? We've got so many unanswered questions. As I've already alluded, the British government has suggested that we should have no more than 70 grams per portion per day of processed meats, because they're unlikely to confirm harm. But one size does not fit all. Most of this stuff you can disregard because it comes from surveys that we have A, no idea where they've come from, B, no idea of people who have actually been interviewed, C, we don't know whether the questions have been rigorously tested, we don't know whether it's reproducible or not, but it's there just for your interest. Do take note of the DEFRA study. That should be pretty much okay. It was back in 2011. The majority of people say open to changing their diet to help the environment. That's good. 63% willing to cut down on red meat, 45% actually willing to cut down on dairy products, and 76% actually willing to cut down on confectionery. A life without chocolate? Unthinkable. No, can't go there. So the other study probably takes some use to looking at is the Food Standards Agency, published in 2012. The safety of meat from outside of the UK is the one that's of most concern. Doesn't say where, doesn't say when, but might be worth looking into. The other things is what we don't actually know. So we've got detailed, timely and comparable consumption figures of meat across the globe. The consumption data does not distinguish how the meat is produced. It doesn't distinguish what dishes people actually eat and how they're cooked and how they're served. There is no quantitative dietary model that describes how, as a nation, globally or otherwise, we can achieve a diet that's both healthy and sustainable. How much meat are we supposed to eat? What type are we supposed to eat? And that's going to be different for different consumers. What type of food we have is relevant to individual behaviour and how much you actually eat as a person. What's the future? What are the trends? Who knows these questions? This is where we need pots and shed loads of money to actually go out and do some more research and find out these answers. This is the other thing I wanted to bring to your attention. It's the Sustainable Food for Nutrition with the double pyramid model produced in Italy back in 2011. It's good. I actually think it's probably an awful lot better than the Eat Well plate. Okay, so you can have a look for that for yourself online. There's the two. There's the adult plate, there's the adult environment pyramid, and there's the child pyramid as well. And they even produce fantastic ideas for vegan menus throughout the week. So that's pretty good. The most interesting result emerging from the double pyramid model is the strong correlation between the environmental pyramid and the impact of food and their nutritional characteristics. So for example, if you go back, so let's have a quick look at this. Look at the top one with the high, so you want a low consumption of meat and dairy products because that's got a very high carbon footprint. Specifically, it's been demonstrated that foods whose consumption should be moderated for health reasons are also those that have a greater impact in terms of soil use, water consumption and CO2 emission. And so what do they suggest? Well, to achieve a sustainable, healthy diet, it's essential that we do try to eat more plant-based foods and reduce our consumption of meat, animal products and other foods like salted snacks and sweets, because unfortunately they don't offer very few good terms in good value nutrition. We need to identify dietary patterns that provide many nutrients we need for health in appropriate amounts, but also those that are equitable, affordable and sustainable. We need to try, if we can, to produce more food with fewer resources, for example, land, fuel and water, to feed the growing global population. And that is one huge challenge for the 21st century. And we do try to need to develop more clear messages for consumers. As I've already alluded several times in this presentation, health messages in nutrition, particularly in the world, are incredibly confusing. So for policymakers, and I'm nearly at an end now, we need to incorporate both healthy eating and substantial recommendations into both European and national dietary guidelines. What we need to try and do is make it excitable and interesting and make it the social norm for us to go and try and choose healthy, sustainable foods. That's going to be a huge, huge challenge because you've got so many international diverse people with many different backgrounds, and trying to get everybody to eat in the same way is a real tall order. It is really important that we have national guidance on portion sizes for different food groups, and I think that will go one heck of a long way to try and reduce the amount of obesity that there is in the world as well. But again, very difficult. We need to develop tools to enable people to become aware of their personal eco-footprint for food. Social media is hugely powerful. Facebook, certainly. Twitter, definitely. They can all have a very good impact, particularly on looking at nutrition and diet. Providing tools to help consumers make practical changes such as menu and recipe ideas and if we can, working with grocery stores to enable people to make healthy, sustainable choices at the point of purchase. So I thank you very much for your attention, and as my cartoon says here, let's smash it open and grab some honey. Oh dear, but that would be tasty, but it would hardly be sustainable. Thank you very much indeed.